government slaves. And the article is, this is what happened when I tried to withdraw $1,500 cash from the Bank of America. The link will be in the video description. The author is Dave Hodges, and there is his picture. He wrote this in March of 2016, so it's not a year old yet. Today is October 27th, 2016. I'm reading this because it's personal testimony. This is what happened to Dave Hodges. If you know who Dave Hodges is, you don't mess around with him because he has a lot of knowledge about slavery and about the events that are taking place. He's well read. I think he's a school teacher. His articles have impact like you wouldn't believe. And when I read this, you will see. This guy has clout, tenacity, research capability, journalist skills. If journalism was a boxing ring, this guy would be the 800-pound gorilla. Now, we all think of the government as the 800-pound gorilla, and they are, because you will see how they pushed him around in Bank of America. You might ask, is Bank of America the government? Well, the bankers run the whole world. They are the entire world government. They are the dictatorship. They are the totalitarian regime that intends to take everything you've got. They want you so poor that you can't protest. And with the handover of our internet to the United Nations by this foreigner in the White House, you can be sure that they're not going to allow articles like this in the future. So I want to read this while I still have one breath of freedom left. A funny thing happened on my way to writing on a very controversial topic. It just so happens that I inadvertently made my own news. To those who expected me to read how the criminal elite are going to stop Donald Trump short of singular assassination plot, that story will be printed on this site tomorrow because he found something better to write on today. I would not defend Donald Trump. He is an insider. And so he spouts off about all of this Adolf Hitler bullshit. He's going to deport an entire religious group, which is not constitutional, and he knows it. When you have two shitty choices, which one do you pick? The correct answer is none of the above. But that's not on the ballot. So you want to vote? Go ahead and vote. Let's see if voting gets you out of this mess we're in. You keep re-electing these same pricks, Democrats and Republicans. There's really only one party. Follow the head down to the neck and see where it joins. There are two heads on this motherfucker and only one body. It's the body of a cockroach. You got two flavors. Democratic cockroaches and Republican cockroaches, but when you get through voting, you elected a fucking cockroach. How do you like cockroaches? You're given two choices, both cockroaches, and you're supposed to pick one. I say none of the above. That's the best choice. Don't vote. Instead, find an article like Dave Hodges and read it. I almost always give you the link to the place where I found it. Go there and look through all the archives and find something you feel is worth reading. We can kick some ass if everybody will make videos, and if you can't make videos, find a link to an article or a video and pass it on to 10 people and give life a chance, because some of those people will pass it on. And some of them will pass it on, and some of them will pass it on, and we can get something going here that's like setting up a table with dominoes, and every time you push over one, it knocks over 10 if you send it out to 10. Each one of those people has 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 200, 3,000, 22,000. The guy that runs Facebook has 22 million, I think. What if he liked your idea and he sent it out? Would that kick some ass or what? Yesterday, I went to Bank of America to withdraw $1,500 cash. You would have thought that I had a sign around my neck saying that I was a heroin dealer. I agree completely. Now remember, he's in Bank of America, and they're treating him like a heroin dealer. He wants $1,500 cash, which is not much, but apparently Bank of America needs to block all withdrawals. Why? Are they on the verge of bankruptcy? That's what anyone would suspect if they don't want you to take out a lousy $1,500 cash. Do you have money in the Bank of America? If you do, and you go there to get $1,500 cash, they may put a finger up your ass like they did Dave Hodges. You better get used to the finger up your ass, because it's going to be everywhere when they set up these Gestapo checkpoints everywhere and you have to show your papers. They can do anything they want to you. What can you do? Watch what Dave did. He gives some advice as well. The teller went back and got a bank officer who began to question me. The bank officer said, "Sir, what are you going to use the money for?" Hodges said, "I'm using it for a legal personal matter. Beyond that, it's none of your business." Bank officer, "Sir, we can put a hold on your account." Hodges says, "I will remove my entire account and deposit it to another bank if I do not have my money in 5 minutes, and I want my money in $100 bills. And the bank officer said, "Sir, your threats will not work here." So they have totalitarian control and they don't give a fuck what you are going to do. "Sir, your threats will not work here, and if you are not cooperative and fill out this form, I will call the police and notify the IRS." He's going to sick the IRS on him. Why would the fucking police respond to this call? Couldn't you ask, was there a crime committed? Is the guy robbing the fucking bank? No, he just wants to withdraw his fucking money. And the police should say, well, fuck you. Who do you think we are? We don't come over and arrest people because they try to withdraw their money from your fucking bank. Who the fuck do you think you are? Imagine that, a bank teller saying, "I will call the police if you want to withdraw $1,500 of your fucking money." Now, why would anybody leave money in Bank of America after an event like this? They're going to call the police and call the fucking IRS mafia. The IRS is a mafia. They have been working on their persona since 1913. They are a fucking mafia. They used to use the gangster with the bent nose and the suit. Everybody knows that gangsters wear suits. All of government wears suits. So what can you deduct from that? Now, Dave Hodges has written articles that I read regarding cash transaction reports and SARs, suspicious activity reports, and they are supposed to be for a lot more money. And so this is bullshit. But Dave Hodges says he wanted me to fill out a cash transaction report, which is not required unless you're withdrawing. He used the wrong word there. Dave, it's you are withdrawing, and it needs an apostrophe and an E. Unless you are withdrawing $10,000 or more. Cash transaction reports are not required for $1,500. What kind of fucking bullshit is this? So Dave says to this lowlife bank officer at Bank of America, "I refuse to fill out your report because it's not required unless I withdraw $10,000, and you may call whomever you want. You obviously do not know the law or who I am. Between my writing and broadcasting, I reach over 2 million people per month. I would say that statistically about 400,000 people have Bank of America accounts who listen to me and read my articles. Before the end of this month, you will see sizable withdrawals based upon my recantation of this conversation." It's only one conversation, Dave. "In the public domain. By the way, I am recording this." Well, Dave, you're up against the 800-pound gorilla, the government and their big fucking banks. And the best thing for you to do is try to get your money, get the fuck out of the bank, get back and retaliate with a story. I would not, you almost went to jail, and they can kill you in jail. What was the executive order that Obama signed? That he can kill anybody, anytime, for any reason. And that also means that he can allow the police to kill anybody at any time for any reason. And they use murder routinely. The bank officer walked away and then disappeared. He came back a few minutes later, instructed the teller to process my request. He should have done that privately so that Dave didn't see it, because Dave made the guy back down. But Dave suspects that he went ahead and filed a cash transaction report to the IRS and the fucking government. Now the bank officer is apologetic because he doesn't want Dave to publish this. Dave published it anyway, and I'm reading it. Fuck you, Bank of America. It's an event that really happened. It happened at Bank of America. I think the viewers should know about it. And Dave walks in and says, "I reach over 2 million people per month," and they back down like a fucking coward. The bank officer says, "I have reviewed your account history, and you have been an excellent customer. You are obviously using the money for honorable purposes. I apologize for any misunderstanding." It was not a misunderstanding. It was a bully tactic to prevent Dave from getting his money out of his fucking account. There wasn't any misunderstanding. He asked for the fucking money. You understood his request, and you tried to block him and make him fill out a form when it's not required. This is fucking bullshit, and this is what you can expect if you bank at Bank of America, people. Instead of just saying thank you and keeping quiet, he's angry. He says, thank you. The purposes for the use of my money, Dave, purposes goes with the verb are, not is. If you say purpose, you can say is. The purpose for the use of my money is none of your business. It is a matter for law enforcement. You should think about this when you try to bully the next guy. Well, you know, you're rubbing his face in shit, and I don't think it's very wise to do that because they've got you, Dave. You are a slave. They own you. You are their property. Who knows this better than Dave Hodges, a guy that reaches 2 million people a month? He walks into the bank knowing that what he's about to do is going to bring some shit on. They fuck with him, and what does he do? It's like someone robs you at knife point, and you start mouthing off to the guy. You tell him how you're going to beat his ass. He's got a fucking knife in his hand. If you're in a robbery and there's a gun or a knife, you hand over something to satisfy the robber, and you survive to tell about it. When you're in a bank, they can kill you, and they'll make up something. This is a totalitarian dictatorship. What else do you need to know? They own your money. You have an erroneous belief if you think it's your money. It's their money as soon as you hand it to them. The mistake is handing it to them. In the past 350 days, Bitcoin doubled in value relative to the worthless dollar. Today it was $680. Less than a year ago, it was $340, around November 5th. I did a video about it, and I showed the entire history during that era, maybe 20 closing prices. Let's read the response from Dave. I am certain that the threat of my reach and potential action against Bank of America did not influence the bank officer's decision to honor my request. I'm sure he called his boss, and they have now filed a suspicious activity report, SAR. This is very serious. And my business affairs will come under the scrutiny of the IRS mafia and possibly the FBI, which has turned into another mafia. Hillary Clinton broke the law, and the FBI cannot find the wherewithal to charge her and arrest her and put her in prison. If they own Hillary, they own the FBI, and they own the IRS, and it is one of their minions. The U.S. military is right this moment guarding poppy fields in Afghanistan because the same pricks have a lucrative $5 trillion a year heroin business. And they deal in cocaine as well, and they took over that market with the invasion of Afghanistan, and the American people don't know it. They don't know that the Vietnam War was the same issue. It was about controlling heroin in Asia. And if you trace the history back, the Brits were involved in the opium business in China in the 1850s. So this idea that government is clean and doesn't deal in dope is wrong. And the people need to know who these people are and what they are doing. What we can do as individuals is seek a decentralized currency that has security. And most of the cryptocurrencies do not have any security, and they are not good values. Most of them. Some of them are outright scams like Infinite Coin and Dogecoin. And there are dozens of others that are shitty investments. They're never going anywhere. The highest point is when they open and people speculate, so they buy some, and they think they're going to wind up with something like Bitcoin. They don't do any research. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. If you're going to invest in a cryptocurrency, you have to ask questions, thousands of questions, and get the answers. Then you know what you're doing. If you're going to put money in a bank, it has risks also. And Bank of America is suspected of this customer, bank customer, depositor, withdrawer. He suspects that they filed a suspicious activity report, and he expects the heat to come down from the IRS and the FBI. And this is tyranny, in case you didn't pick that up already. This is tyranny. That's what we live under now, tyranny. Tyranny and dictatorship go together. You don't want tyranny? You don't want a dictatorship? You have to do something. Speak out. Don't speak out like Dave did, because these are emotions running in the presence of a bank where they have people with guns. They can shoot you down. They can kill you. They might have some asshole who's programmed, and all they have to do is say fire, and he raises his gun, points it at you, and fires. It's not a good idea to fuck with the banks because they have too much power. What you do is you remove their fucking power, and I think Dave hinted at it when he says, I'll withdraw my money from this fucking bank and I'll put it in another bank. He says, I have no doubt that they would love to turn me into the next Bundy family member of the banking world. I will have more to say on this topic later in the article. An interesting aside, I requested that my money withdrawal be dispersed in $100 bills. They had one, count it, one $100 bill in the entire fucking bank. Dave, are you sure you were in the Bank of America? Because this sounds like somebody who's running a bank out of the trunk of his car. Dave Hodges has researched to write articles about this topic. He knows what he's talking about. Listen to this. I asked the teller if the bank was making good on the rumor that they were phasing out $100 bills in their incremental move toward a cashless society. The $10 per hour teller said that she didn't know what he was talking about. Now he admits that he is worked up and out of control. At that point, and being a little worked up, I asked the teller which arm she was going to receive the chip so she could continue buying and selling and working for B of A. She had no idea what I was talking about. People, you've got a job to do to inform these bank tellers about what's really going on in the world. If she knew what was going on, she could have smiled at Dave and says, I know what you're talking about. And he could have smiled back, and I think he would have relaxed. Instead, she's a bank employee, scared to death they're going to fire her from her $10 an hour job, and she plays dumber than a donut and large coffee to go. Have you ever noticed when you go into Bank of America, they have everybody roped off? Long lines? You would think that with people standing in line waiting to give them their money, they might hire a few more $10 an hour employees and get through those lines quicker. Instead, they got fucking miles and miles of rope and these little things that hold the rope up. And you have to go through there like cattle waiting to be slaughtered. I remember being in a B of A one time in Southern California, and I was standing in one of those fucking lines, bitching and complaining loudly. You might have thought I was a Baptist preacher. And a guy with a gun came over to me and he said, I was complaining to him about his bank, and he said, I'm not a bank employee. This bank has been robbed and we're with the FBI. And I looked at his gun and I felt like being quiet after that. I said, oh, okay. And the rest of the time there, I just stood in line quietly. I didn't want to attract any attention to myself. Now I want you to bow your heads and pray, because Dave is going to lead prayer. Quote, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. I had images of my Lord and Savior chasing the banksters from the temple. Well, Dave, I hate to break this to you. Jesus ain't fucking coming back, because he never existed. The Romans made him up. You know Al-Qaeda? Same thing. The government made up Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Did you happen to notice when ISIS was yanked off the stage suddenly? How could a terrorist group just fucking vanish? The U.S. government and all its military might couldn't defeat them. They couldn't defeat the fucking Taliban over 15 years of ferocious fighting. And so they yank Al-Qaeda off the stage. They put ISIS on the stage. And we're all supposed to believe it's a brand new day. No, it's the same fucking routine. The CIA sponsored Al-Qaeda. They retired them. They're living in Miami now with a nice pension, picking up American girls and having fun for a job well done. And now ISIS has taken over for them. Do you think that some of the people re-enlisted to serve with ISIS so they could get a CIA check? Fucking right they did. So government created Al-Qaeda, they created ISIS, they yanked Al-Qaeda off the stage, ISIS replaced them, and the Lord Jesus never fucking existed. Did anybody paint a portrait of Jesus during his lifetime? No, nobody did that. Did anybody talk about him during his lifetime? No. They waited 200 fucking years to talk about him. And the Bible is full of contradictions. It's full of predictions that never came true. Not one fucking prediction in the Bible ever came true. It was not written by God. It is a bullshit document. Does that mean there is no God? I don't know. I don't know. We haven't found him. And when we ask the aliens, is there a God? They say, we never found one. They don't want to say, no, there isn't, because they don't know either. They travel all over the fucking galaxy and they don't know. And I don't know. But I'm pretty sure that Jesus never existed. Because all these tales about Jesus go back 2,000 years before Jesus, and they're the same fucking story just retold. The Romans knew that the people were already buying this bullshit. They decided to make this Jesus' story. And it worked like hot dogs at a fucking baseball game. Feed the people garbage, and they will soon be all buying fucking hot dogs. What is a fucking hot dog? It's garbage. Did you ever look inside one? It's all the shit nobody wants. It's pure garbage. Put a little relish on top, put some raw onions, put some mustard, ketchup, and hand it to some kid, and he'll fucking eat it. And if you've ever bitten into anything hard in a hot dog, then you have a clue about what's in it. I don't buy hamburgers because I don't trust McDonald's or Burger King or any of the other fast food restaurants. I want to know what the fuck I'm eating. I want labels to tell me what the fuck I'm eating. And they have removed all the labels because they own all the fucking companies. So they're not going to tell you that fluoride is in everything. Everything they can possibly put it into. So Dave imagines Jesus tipping over the tables. Well, that's a nice idea for all the religious people. To me, it's pure bullshit. Jesus is not coming back to save you. I have seen too many cases where Jesus should have been there to save those little kids, and Jesus forgot to show up. Which tells me the fucking preachers are liars. Now the next line is confusing to me. I have arranged for a transfer of the funds from the impacted account. He didn't tell us what impacted means. He didn't tell us if he took the entire amount of money in his account. I have arranged for a transfer of the funds from the impacted account. And if you notice, there are two spaces between from and the, and that tells me that he changed that diction to say impacted, but he never bothered to tell us what impacted means. Now he's got some advice. Before you move any money, you need to read the following, or you risk going to jail. Be careful who you speak with. If the feds do show up to speak with me, I will not be speaking with them about anything of substance. When Martha Stewart was accused of insider trading, Stewart tried to explain away the concerns. That was her big mistake. She was sent to jail for making false statements to the federal officials. Note, they can lie to you and try to trick you, and the criminal elite have made that legal. But if they say you have misled them or left out one detail, you go to prison, and it is your word versus their word. Now that is totalitarian, that is corrupt, and that is the future and the present of the United States of America. You live in a totalitarian dictatorship where they have all the power, you have no power. They grant you rights which are privileges, and they can yank them anytime they fucking please. That's not what the Constitution says. They don't give a fuck what the Constitution says. When and if the feds show up at my door, I will be taping and recording myself saying, I invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination and reserve my right to be represented by an attorney for all questioning. If I am not under arrest, you need to leave my property and I will arrange a meeting with my attorney. If you say any more, you are probably going to jail. I think he was so angry when he wrote this that he didn't proofread it. I'm going to read it the way it should be instead of the way it's written. Oh, they will threaten you and say that you're making things hard on yourself and that things will go easier if you cooperate. Your answer, and the only thing you should say, is, quote, I will fully cooperate with you when my attorney is present, and since we all have to abide by the Constitution, get the hell out of my house, unquote. Well, when you live in a totalitarian society, you don't have a fucking Constitution. This is like believing in Jesus. This is fantasy. This is like believing that your deposits are insured by the FDIC. That's fucking fantasy. There is no fucking FDIC. There is no insurance company to insure your deposits. That ended recently. And he's going to cover that, by the way. If you have been in the dark about what's going on, you're going to get a lesson here. Now, we talked about risks of putting money into the bank, and this is a risk. The term is structuring, and it means moving $10,000 in small bundles, like splitting it up into 5,000 and 5,000. And here's how innocent it could be, and you could still wind up in prison. You sell a truck, it's $12,000. And this was the example that Dave Hodges gave in the article I read on this channel. You sell a truck and you have a pile of money and you break it up. You put half in the bank in the morning because you're going to do something with the rest, maybe buy a motorcycle. And you decide not to buy that motorcycle because it has a broken tailpipe. And you deposit the rest of the money into the bank. That's structuring. You can go to prison for that. It's your money. The fucking government has no right to have anything to say about your money, according to the Constitution. But the Constitution is dead, and a totalitarian dictatorship took over, and they make the rules. They make them up as they go. So he starts the paragraph. The heading is Structuring Suspicious Activity Reports and Cash Transaction Reports. He writes them as SARs and CTRs. Previously, I mentioned the bank probably filed an SAR on me. And he thinks they're going to be investigating him for structuring. Structuring carries a very long prison sentence to go with a hefty fine. This is one way that the government is going to rob people of all their money. People who move a lot of money around, the wealthy, they have to watch it because they could have all their money seized because of this structuring. Now, how did they pass a law like structuring? Dope. There are dope dealers, and so they have to. Well, the dope dealers are them. And all the money laundering is them. So what's this bullshit about structuring? It's a law that they put into place so they could use it. In the case of Dave Hodges. And a lot of people who have money in the bank. The federal government will automatically investigate any cash withdrawal of $10,000 or more from your account. To remain in compliance with the law, financial institutions, and he's got a link there, must obtain personal identification information about the transaction and the social security number of the person conducting the transaction. That is none of their fucking business. When they passed out social security numbers and implemented this socialist program, which has turned out to be a Ponzi scheme, they stole the money twice for wars and other reasons that lined the pockets of those in control. And today they're using that social security number as your identification. The promise by government was broken. You cannot trust government. Dave Hodges says in the next paragraph, technically, there is no federal law prohibiting the use of large amounts of cash. However, a CTR must be filed in all cases of cash transaction regardless of the reason underlying the transaction. This means your cash transaction will be on the radar. The feds will automatically investigate you, he means the feds will automatically investigate your drug dealing, enterprise corruption, and or money laundering. And they can put a lien on everything you own during the investigative process. Remember, keep your mouth shut. There will undoubtedly be some geniuses whose math ability will tell them that all they have to do is withdraw $9,999.99, and the bank and the guardian of the bank, the federal government, will be none the wiser. And Dave Hodges says it's not quite that simple. If over a period of 12 months you show a pattern of withdrawals which fall under the $10,000 threshold of a cash transaction report requirement, you will be convicted of structuring and go to jail every time. Therefore, I do not dare go back to any bank with my name on it and make a similar withdrawal. So long as I do not go to a bank in the next 12 months and make a similar withdrawal, the government cannot make a case against me. Structuring, I'm going to have to read that sentence again. The government cannot make a structuring case against me because it requires multiple withdrawals over a discrete period of time. Dave, you should proofread this. Don't read it yourself. You're too emotional. Have someone else read it. I'll be glad to do your proofreading for you. I skipped a part when I recorded this. Let me add it now. Structuring transactions to prevent a CTR, cash transaction report, from being reported to the IRS mafia can result in imprisonment They don't send Hillary Clinton to prison. Just we the people. Can result in imprisonment for not more than 5 years. Well, I know of a guy that went to jail for 9 years for structuring. A viewer told me about it. I wouldn't trust anything that the fucking government says because it's all bullshit. They do whatever the fuck they want. They don't pay any attention to the U.S. Constitution. It's a fucking dictatorship. Structuring a transaction to prevent a CTR from being reported can result in imprisonment for not more than 5 years and a fine of up to $250,000. Well, what are they going to fine Hillary Clinton for? Leaving her servers open so that anybody could get the classified material. Is she going to spend one fucking day in jail? Is she going to pay a $250,000 fine? No, of course not. She's above the fucking law. And so is her serial rapist husband. I know what some of you are thinking. You'd like to see the CIA hurl her fucking ass down a long flight of stairs. Personally, I block out such imagery, because I'm a non-violent person. But if the CIA did it, they are Murder Incorporated, you would understand. So where's the fucking CIA when you need them? If structuring involves more than $100,000 in a 12-month period, look at all the fucking controls. What did we the people have to say about these controls? Nothing. That means the government is illegitimate. Are you ready to secede? Are you ready to fire all of these pricks in office? Who the fuck are they to come up with these rules? If the structuring involves more than $100,000 in a 12-month period, or is performed while violating another law of the federal government, example given, money laundering, drug dealing. Well, who the fuck are the money launderers and drug dealers? HSBC has been caught twice. What happened to them? Was anybody spoken to harshly? Fuck no. They save all the jail time for we the people. This is fucked up. I'm getting my voice back. Money laundering, drug dealing, etc., the penalty is doubled. I get really sick and tired of seeing two sets of rules, one for we the people and another set where these pricks are exempt. It's fucked up. I want my country back. I want the Constitution back. And I want all of these pricks in government gone. We can represent ourselves just fine. Are you with me, people? All right. Back to the regular program. Now Dave is in the advice business. This is risky. I would not do this. What should you do with your cash in the bank? Now what he wants you to do is pull it out and see Bank of America collapse. If you haven't already reached that conclusion by now, let's hear Dave's advice and see what he suggests. Before I suggest what one should do with their cash in the bank, I want to make the readers fully aware of how the banking system, along with the muscle provided by the federal government, and that's a mafia term, muscle, have made definitive plans to steal your cash in the bank. And he's got 1 and 2 on this page, probably 3 and 4 on the next page. Number 1, Treasury Secretary Jack Lew and the UK's Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne, on November 10th of 2014 ran a joint exercise that was November 10th, 2014, simulating how they would prop up a large bank, and the example is Bank of America, with operations in both countries that has landed itself in trouble. Also taking part in the bank failure drill, which included a cyber attack upon several banks, was Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen, who I believe is a propaganda tool. They put a little lady, a short little harmless lady up there to represent the bankers. How nice. This little grandmother couldn't possibly be an evil person. But the Federal Reserve is pure evil, which included a cyber attack upon several banks, was Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen and Bank of England Governor Mark Carney, and the heads of a large number of other regulators in a meeting hosted by the U.S. Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. All of these people worked for the same group of thieves, what most people think of as the bankers. It's the Rothschilds' money and the Rockefellers' money and the money of those who own and control everything. All right, so point number 1 was they had a meeting and they screwed you. Number 2, as of November 16, 2014, your bank account has been collateralized against the derivatives debt. Hence, you had in 2008 former CEO of Goldman Sachs and Secretary of Treasury Hank Paulson telling a closed session of Congress that if they did not authorize bailouts, there would be tanks in the streets in an ultimate, he does not need the word ultimately, he needs ultimate. There would be tanks in the street in an ultimate revolution. This was necessitated by the credit swap derivatives Ponzi scheme and the debacle that would follow the collapse of the dollar. So they already know the dollar is going to collapse. They planned it. They engineered it. And they know that there's going to be a revolution, and they're going to kill hundreds of millions of Americans during the revolution. It is not wise to take up arms against them. Do that, and you'll get yourself killed quickly. Number 3, further, the bankruptcy reform laws stemming from the Bankruptcy Reform Act of 2005 have given the credit swap derivatives counterparties preference over all other creditors and customers of the bankrupt financial institution, including FDIC-insured depositors. Which means you have no FDIC insurance, and you never did. The FDIC has been broke since I read a book by Lawrence Ritter called Money, must have been 35 years ago, when the FDIC had only 1% to cover all of the money needed to cover all those deposits should the banks be insolvent. The FDIC doesn't want to pay, and I have personal experience. A friend's father had $400,000 in a Chicago bank, and the owner of that bank disappeared with $5 billion. He faked a plane crash, and the FDIC did not want to pay my friend's father. This was a prominent Mexican family. My friend was an architect. The Jewish community in Mexico is very elite. They're all professionals. It is part of their religion to get an education, and everyone has a degree. In their community of 60,000 people at that time, this was 1978. In order to get his money, he had to prove every deposit. He was able to prove about 320,000 of them. So banking in America is not so secure, is it? When the people know the truth, it is hypocrisy to walk into a Bank of America and see FDIC signs everywhere, telling you that you're insured up to $250,000. It's bullshit. I can tell you firsthand it's bullshit. At a time in the recent past, there were 8,000 banks, and 25% of them were on the verge of bankruptcy. Too many high salaries, too many bonuses, and even though they had exorbitant fees, they still couldn't keep things solvent. The FDIC would be required to come up with $1 trillion to cover those 25% bad banks, what the Federal Reserve at the time called crummy banks. So you might wonder, did the FDIC have $1 trillion? No. They billed the banks 3 years in advance and counted it and claimed to have $48 billion. Now imagine that you get a knock on your door and it's the electric company and they say, we're going to bill you 3 years in advance for your electric bill. Would that bankrupt you? Well, that's what the FDIC did to banks. So I have my own testimony to give here, to help the viewer understand what's really going on. I've done my own reading over the years, and I remember a lot. Now, the author refers to something that I don't know too much about. He says, this is why the G20 effectively stole your money on the morning of November 16, 2014. That was almost exactly 2 years ago. On this action taken by the G20 nations, your bank account is no longer considered to be money. The bankers holding the bag on the credit swap derivatives will move to the head of the FDIC compensation line. In other words, if the banks are collapsed, your money will be used to pay down the derivatives debt, which means they're going to nationalize your money, steal it. Therefore, the regulations requiring that your money be insured by the FDIC are no longer in effect. This devaluation of money to something other than money gives what the experts call super priority in terms of the line of succession from which to collect bankruptcy monies. Now here's the way that works. If your friend owes you $1 million and you check into what he's been doing and you find he has a whole lot of gambling bets called derivatives and that he's up to his eyeballs in debt, he owes you $1 million, but he has $70 billion, let's say, in derivatives debts If he files bankruptcy, you get in line behind the 70 billion. Now, I've reduced the scale in order to make this understandable because the real numbers with the banks are 70 trillion. The largest banks and Goldman Sachs have about 70 trillion in liabilities from derivatives. Now, do you want to get in line behind those? Because 70 trillion will have to be paid before you are paid. And what are the assets of these large banks? Somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 billion. And they're counting your deposits in that 500 billion. So they owe 70 trillion and they only have 500 billion and it's your money. They have nothing invested. And you're probably wondering, what the fuck kind of bullshit is this? Next page. The bank bail-ins or outright cash confiscations are coming. That's theft. If you do nothing and leave your money in the bank, you and your money will soon be parted. Amen. If you recklessly try to withdraw your cash, you and your money will soon be parted, and you will be in prison. So what can you do? As the owner of DH Communications LLC, among other things, we own the exclusive rights to the Common Sense Show. We made a collective decision to primarily advertise for business interests that fit our chartered purpose, namely, to help people prepare to survive what is coming. So the author is trying to sell you on an investment. And he says, therefore, we place a premium on accepting advertising from business entities that increase the odds of survival. You would be wise to avoid banking prison that we all live under and make direct purchases of items that you will need to survive the coming economic calamity. If you make purchases directly from your bank account for items you will need, you do not have to worry about federal banking laws. I know that your NSA, National Spy Agency, threat matrix score will go up, but it is the cost of doing business in a chaotic and corrupt country. Before the crash comes, you will need to take care of these 6 areas. 1. You will need precious metals. And then he mentions Steve Quayle and Renaissance precious metals because your cash will soon be worthless or confiscated. When the cash is gone, you will need a medium of exchange that will be gold and silver. Number 2, you will need survival supplies, that is, water, filters, night vision goggles, when an economic collapse will lead to rioting hordes. This is why I shop at readymaderesources.com. Number 3, you will need to store food, so I use Numana, 2 N's, Numana. Now he said something here which he didn't really elaborate on, and I think I want to question it. Number 1, he says, your cash will soon be worthless or confiscated. Where does this idea come from? I think they have a long-term idea of eliminating cash. Trump is the winner of the rigged election that was supposed to go to Hillary, and what I read was the Zetas teleported a human into the control room and froze everybody else, and the human corrected the bias towards Hillary, and that's why Donald Trump won. I did a video about it in early November 2016, so look for it. Might be under the playlist Scams. So if the author is so sure that cash will soon be worthless or confiscated, I want to know more about that. That is very important. Let's go to the next card. Number 4, in a societal meltdown that will follow a banking collapse, you will need a means to protect your family and your resources. That means you will need guns and gun accessories. Well, they control everything. They control the guns, they control the accessories, they control the water and the electricity. And they can turn off your sewer, and they can make life so miserable that you will think that you're in Iraq. Because that's what they did to the people in Iraq. And he says, for this gun service, I use Detect Tactical. It's hard to read the word because Detect Tactical. And if you need to be trained in both tactics and how to use and maintain your weapons, that's the end of the fucking sentence? What kind of bullshit is this? He starts a sentence with and he doesn't fucking finish the sentence? Number 5, you will need to stockpile medicine. Just about all medicine is loaded with fluoride, so good luck there. I don't trust the pharmaceutical industry. I would rather die than take medicine, especially if it comes from the government needle. Fuck the government. Fuck vaccines. I'm not ever going to take a vaccine. I don't care what laws they pass, I'm not taking it. So he wants you to stockpile medicine. If you're unable to do that, I would recommend going to Dr. Ted Broer's Health Master site and ordering natural products which act in the same capacity without the side effects. So he's saying that all the drugs are unnecessary. They have side effects in addition, and that there are natural products you can buy from Dr. Ted Broer's Health Master's site, and he's got a link. And that these alternatives will do just as good. Ted has successfully treated myself for 2 maladies and has had great results with Doug Hagman as well. I don't know who Doug Hagman is. Am I supposed to know? Is he a famous movie star? I don't watch movies. Ted is not yet an advertiser on my site, but soon will be. When you contact Health Masters, mention Dave Hodges or coupon code DAVE5 and receive 5% off your purchase. Big fucking deal. Number 6, the Patriot community needs a social media platform to interact in and to have access to topics which can serve to educate all the millions of people that Donald Trump is awakening. Donald Trump is an insider. Judge him by his actions, not his fucking words, because he is now a politician, which means a fucking liar, a backstabber. Certainly not a representative. He's going to represent Israel. He's going to represent himself. These awakened Donald Trump aficionados will need a place to grow and learn how to take their place among a growing group of activists. Facebook, with their censorship and spying, is not that place. That's true, but it is the largest, and they want to remain the largest, and they need to back down on this censorship and spying bullshit. So instead of Facebook, he recommends a smaller company. Scene.life is the place. No spying, no censorship, no traffic, no selling of your personal information. Did I ever tell you what Dailymotion did with my email address? They sold it to porn dealers. And I get advertisements for penis enlargement. What kind of fucking bullshit is that? I'm 65 years old. I don't need a bigger penis. Dailymotion did that to me. So if you ever give them an email address, make sure it's a bogus one. Create a new one and give them that one. And as soon as you start getting porno, just close the account. The last card. Of course, everyone is free to use whatever vendor they choose. However, you need to cover these 6 critical areas in order to enhance your survival. There isn't any survival. They plan to kill at least 200 million Americans. And they plan to kill 13 out of 14 families on the fucking planet. It has been part of their plan for decades, and they are now in a position where they can carry it out. And they've got the United Nations on their side. It is a totalitarian communist regime where the people have no fucking input anywhere. The EU is set up the same fucking way, and that's why the Brits want the fuck out. There are 2 comments, and I think I'll read them. Zaphod Braden writes, better get all your money out of B of A next time, may not be so easy. That's good advice. Suez writes, B of A are criminals, in my opinion. I would never have anything to do with them or give them any business. I think that's excellent testimony from Suez. Thank you, Suez. That's the end of the article. I recorded the second part of this while recovering from pneumonia, which I think the government gave me by spraying it in the air. I think this is part of what they spray out of jets in their chemtrails. And they have weakened my immune system with nano-sized barium. Nano-sized barium. A nanometer is a billionth of a meter. What nano-sized barium does is it compromises your immune system. So if I sound sick, it's because I've been sick since early November. And I feel today like I'm over it, but my voice is still showing that I've still got some infection in my throat. I enjoyed reading you this article, and I want to read you 2 things I wrote. If you expect Donald Trump to take office and solve all these problems, I will tell you he's an insider, has a very strong and long-term friendship with the bankers. And he's not going to bite the hand that feeds him. He is controlled by money just like everybody else. These bankers have so much power that they can crush anyone. Donald Trump knows that, and he wants to continue being a billionaire. He can't step on their toes because they will kill him in broad daylight as they did JFK, and have the CIA murder all the witnesses as they did in 1963 and the years following the murder of a puppet who thought he was the president. And the last card, can you tell that the system is falling apart? Banks call the police on customers who try to withdraw their own money from their own bank accounts. Do they think this is going to improve confidence in Bank of America and other such banks? Does this make people want to fire the federal government? Where were we, the people involved, when they came up with these crazy ideas of reporting your private banking transactions to the IRS mafia? The more they push us, abuse us, use fear to motivate us, the more we want to secede from the Union and end their reign of terror. Are you more in favor of secession now than before you heard Dave Hodges' report about Bank of America? That is the end of this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. The website is Government Slaves, and the article is, "This is what happened when I tried to withdraw $1,500 cash from the Bank of America." The link will be in the video description. The author is Dave Hodges, and there is his picture. He wrote this in March of 2016, so it's not a year old yet. Today is October 27th, 2016. I'm reading this because it's personal testimony. This is what happened to Dave Hodges. If you know who Dave Hodges is, you don't mess around with him because he has a lot of knowledge about slavery and about the events that are taking place. He's well read. I think he's a school teacher. His articles have impact like you wouldn't believe. And when I read this, you will see. This guy has clout, tenacity, research capability, journalist skills. If journalism was a boxing ring, this guy would be the 800-pound gorilla. Now, we all think of the government as the 800-pound gorilla, and they are, because you will see how they pushed him around in Bank of America. You might ask, is Bank of America the government? Well, the bankers run the whole world. They are the entire world government. They are the dictatorship. They are the totalitarian regime that intends to take everything you've got. They want you so poor that you can't protest. And with the handover of our internet to the United Nations by this foreigner in the White House, you can be sure that they're not going to allow articles like this in the future. So I want to read this while I still have one breath of freedom left. A funny thing happened on my way to writing on a very controversial topic. It just so happens that I inadvertently made my own news. To those who expected me to read how the criminal elite are going to stop Donald Trump short of singular assassination plot, that story will be printed on this site tomorrow because he found something better to write on today. I would not defend Donald Trump. He is an insider. And so he spouts off about all of this Adolf Hitler bullshit. He's going to deport an entire religious group, which is not constitutional, and he knows it. When you have two shitty choices, which one do you pick? The correct answer is none of the above. But that's not on the ballot. So you want to vote? Go ahead and vote. Let's see if voting gets you out of this mess we're in. You keep re-electing these same pricks, Democrats and Republicans. There's really only one party. Follow the head down to the neck and see where it joins. There are two heads on this motherfucker and only one body. It's the body of a cockroach. You got two flavors. Democratic cockroaches and Republican cockroaches, but when you get through voting, you elected a fucking cockroach. How do you like cockroaches? You're given two choices, both cockroaches, and you're supposed to pick one. I say none of the above. That's the best choice. Don't vote. Instead, find an article like Dave Hodges and read it. I almost always give you the link to the place where I found it. Go there and look through all the archives and find something you feel is worth reading. We can kick some ass if everybody will make videos, and if you can't make videos, find a link to an article or a video and pass it on to 10 people and give life a chance, because some of those people will pass it on. And some of them will pass it on, and some of them will pass it on, and we can get something going here that's like setting up a table with dominoes, and every time you push over 1, it knocks over 10 if you send it out to 10. Each one of those people has 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 200, 3,000, 22,000. The guy that runs Facebook has 22 million, I think. What if he liked your idea and he sent it out? Would that kick some ass or what? Yesterday, I went to Bank of America to withdraw $1,500 cash. You would have thought that I had a sign around my neck saying that I was a heroin dealer. I agree completely. Now remember, he's in Bank of America, and they're treating him like a heroin dealer. He wants $1,500 cash, which is not much, but apparently Bank of America needs to block all withdrawals. Why? Are they on the verge of bankruptcy? That's what anyone would suspect if they don't want you to take out a lousy $1,500 cash. Do you have money in the Bank of America? If you do, and you go there to get $1,500 cash, they may put a finger up your ass like they did Dave Hodges. You better get used to the finger up your ass, because it's going to be everywhere when they set up these Gestapo checkpoints everywhere and you have to show your papers. They can do anything they want to you. What can you do? Watch what Dave did. He gives some advice as well. The teller went back and got a bank officer who began to question me. The bank officer said, "Sir, what are you going to use the money for?" Hodges said, "I'm using it for a legal personal matter. Beyond that, it's none of your business." Bank officer, "Sir, we can put a hold on your account." Hodges says, "I will remove my entire account and deposit it to another bank if I do not have my money in 5 minutes, and I want my money in $100 bills. And the bank officer said, "Sir, your threats will not work here." So they have totalitarian control and they don't give a fuck what you are going to do. "Sir, your threats will not work here, and if you are not cooperative and fill out this form, I will call the police and notify the IRS." He's going to sick the IRS on him. Why would the fucking police respond to this call? Couldn't you ask, was there a crime committed? Is the guy robbing the fucking bank? No, he just wants to withdraw his fucking money. And the police should say, well, fuck you. Who do you think we are? We don't come over and arrest people because they try to withdraw their money from your fucking bank. Who the fuck do you think you are? Imagine that, a bank teller saying, "I will call the police if you want to withdraw $1,500 of your fucking money." Now, why would anybody leave money in Bank of America after an event like this? They're going to call the police and call the fucking IRS mafia. The IRS is a mafia. They have been working on their persona since 1913. They are a fucking mafia. They used to use the gangster with the bent nose and the suit. Everybody knows that gangsters wear suits. All of government wears suits. So what can you deduct from that? Now, Dave Hodges has written articles that I read regarding cash transaction reports and SARs, suspicious activity reports, and they are supposed to be for a lot more money. And so this is bullshit. But Dave Hodges says he wanted me to fill out a cash transaction report, which is not required unless you're withdrawing. He used the wrong word there. Dave, it's you are withdrawing, and it needs an apostrophe and an E. Unless you are withdrawing $10,000 or more. Cash transaction